Before we begin, thank you very much to Alka for joining my Patreon campaign. Very appreciated. Thank you so much. It does mean a lot to me, and we're going to be discussing why it means so much to me with the topic of today's video. To get this out of the way right off the bat, I did intend for today to be the Let's Fix Beast Machines video. However, I want to put a little bit more polish on it. I want to make sure the story completely makes sense, and gathering the visuals for it is going to take a lot longer than I assumed. So instead of rushing it out, I want one more night to put a polish on it. You'll be seeing it tomorrow. And then at the end of the video today, I'll let you know everything that's going on next week, because we got a ton going on next week. All right, but today we have to talk about the most uncomfortable of topics, money. I'm sorry. But I thought today, instead of going through Beast Machines, let's talk about something less painful, the economy. And just kind of get a little bit of discussion going here. So let's start this. Before we go anywhere with this discussion, okay? There's a couple things to keep in mind. Number one, the economy sucks right now. Everything is more expensive than it used to be. And toys, let's be honest, are probably the lowest priority there is. You know, outside of things like getting your nails polished or pedicures, things like things like toys, nah, it's hard to justify these days, and that is why I thank everyone for pitching in on the Patreon. You know, I'm kind of in that same boat too. So the fact that you guys contribute helps me keep the content coming. And I try to pay it back as much as I can. I try to do as much for you guys as possible for it, and I thank you. Because I know even if it's just $1 a month, it's not easy for some people to contribute. I appreciate everyone who is willing to do it. So, thank you again. The other thing to keep in mind here is I live in the US, where collecting-wise, I have the most privileged of prices there are. Anytime, and that is because that the shipping lanes between the US and China are so big and so common that these things are very, very cheap compared to everything else. If something has to get to, even if things have to get to Canada and Mexico, they usually have to come through America first because all the ports are on our East Coast, or West Coast, sorry, and then they have to filter through the country, and that gets more expensive. The freight on that gets more expensive. If you're in Europe or South America, things have to go through the Suez Canal, which takes a lot longer, and then you're literally having to boat things across the world, because the other option is to cart it over by land across Asia. That makes things more expensive. Basically, anywhere that is not the US, it's going to be more expensive to be a collector on the whole. And being a collector everywhere else is going to be harder because a lot of countries don't order every single wave of toys. You miss out on a lot of things, or things show up months later than they do anywhere else. I'm fortunate to be a collector in the US because we get a lot of things first. A lot of other places not so lucky. So let's keep that in mind too before we begin this discussion. And yeah, the heart of the discussion is, how expensive does it get before we just say no? I've been thinking about this a lot lately because, you know what? I still buy quite a few Transformers. It is because I'm lucky to be in a financial situation that allows it, and it's not just the Patreon. It's what I make doing this job, like I don't do too badly, I'm fortunate in that. Lets me bring content to you guys, lets me keep my hobby alive. But ultimately, that's a privileged position, and it's one that is genuinely one I'm reconsidering now. I kind of like in the last couple years, like when I've been redoing my video content to be more about ideas, discussions, observations, news, etc., and my toy review stuff has been minimized, it's because I am preparing for a future where I'm just not going to be able to buy Transformers left and right. And really, and that might not even be because economy gets tighter or my money takes priority elsewhere. It might just be because they price me out. I just keep thinking about, how long is it going to be before I'm uncomfortable spending what they're asking me to spend on toys? right? I mean, let's look at this. I mean, just a few examples here. Okay, so this is kind of what got me thinking about this in particular, the new collaborative Jurassic Park set. Now, don't get me wrong, I pre-ordered it. Not entirely confident I'm going to keep that. If it's anything like the last Jurassic Park set, it might be safe to cancel. Like if the T-Rex set, if the T-Rex goes on clearance at half price, I don't think this is going to have any trouble hitting that same level. I'll probably be able to get this thing for like 45 bucks sometime next year. So I'm probably going to cancel the pre-order. Cuz look at this. What we've got here is ultimately looks like 2 deluxes from what I can tell. I mean, maybe it's throwing me off and they're both Voyager class or something, but look at the price, like $75. And by the way, the toy listing does not describe how big or tall these toys are. See, I can look at that 5mm port in the hand and go, that's a deluxe class. That's not a Voyager. So $25 for a deluxe these days, and it doesn't exactly look like this one does not exactly look like the most complicated of toys, by the way. And I just kind of wonder to myself, where does the money go here? It goes into the paint job, and it goes into the Jurassic Park people's hands is where it goes. Mattel's got the master license for it, so they're probably getting a cut of this too. But it's just outrageous to me. It's 2 deluxes. It's 2 deluxes for 75 bucks because you slapped a Jurassic Park logo on it. Oh, it's weird. It's weird. It's upsetting is what it is. Because like I would argue that the first set they did is almost worth the price, but I'll also be very upfront. That one was way overpriced too. You know, that was over $100 for a leader class and a large-ish deluxe. It doesn't really work out too well. It doesn't really converge. I know all the crossover stuff, all the collaboratives, they all run more expensive because of licensing, but still, this is a little bit much. But let's not even look at that. That just got me thinking about this. I mean, we look at things like the core class toys, where it's like $12 for something with limited articulation, very, very small pocket size. Now, we do live in a time where collectors are willing to pay, you know, 50, 60 odd dollars for a pocket scale, you know, figure. You know, like New Age is incredibly expensive for the size of its toys, incredibly well designed. They're micro masterpieces, but still way overpriced if you go by plastic quantity or even a part count, if we're being honest. The same thing goes to these cores. Back in my day, 2006, you could buy a deluxe Grimlock who was very solid, about, you know, twice the height and 3 times the mass of this thing, and it would be, you know, $10. So in that short of a time, you know, in like just a little over 15 years, we've gotten to this point where, yeah, like a tiny little figure like that that's very limited in paint and articulation is going to be the same price as, you know, a deluxe was back then. Inflation sucks like that. And core class is one of those sizes where like the price they ask just does feel just way too high for what you get. Some of them are okay. Some of them feel bulkier than others, but then you've got things like the rat trap they did. And I think the engineering on the rat trap's great, but it seems very small and thin for a $10 and then later $12 piece. So at what point, like, does core class hit $15 and then I'm just like, I'm out? Probably. You know, we've been a few years since our last price hike, but doesn't it feel like we're due? Doesn't it feel like we're due when everything else is getting more expensive? Let's buy, you know, like what else do I have, like, for what else do I pull up? For me, it was the Masterpiece toys. Like when the Masterpiece toys suddenly skyrocketed, and I'm like, no, I loved Masterpiece toys, but like I loved getting a Masterpiece for like $100, or like Masterpiece Ironhide I got for 90 when it was new. Like, and that's a big and very feature-filled toy. Now I'm looking at $160 for a train bot for a combiner that's going to be no bigger than the Combiner War ones when it's complete, and I genuinely don't see where the money went. I don't see where we went from like Ironhide was $90 retail. This guy's $160 at retail. Where did that go? Like, what happened? Like how did it get that much? Now, I understand part count, complexity, all that. One of the big reasons why the Masterpiece toys skyrocketed in price is because they started prioritizing cartoon accuracy. And cartoon accuracy means far, far more complicated toys and far more complicated engineering. Higher part count, longer assembly time, bigger cost that gets passed on to the consumer. I understand economics. Like, don't get me wrong. The question here is, how long before these things get too expensive to justify? You know, you ask me to spend $250 on a Dinobot, then okay, fine, because that's a near impossible transformation. I understand the complexity. You ask me to spend $300 on the Megatron, which is far more simple? No. Like, it's big, but is it worth it for the size? I don't think it is. I never got Beast Wars Masterpiece Megatron. You know, it's one of the few Masterpiece Beast Wars I didn't get. And now they don't even seem to be doing them anymore. It's been forever since I heard them making another one. And then, yeah, like, when they did Masterpiece 3.0 Optimus, that's where I checked out for Masterpiece. And this be, like, even before, like, all the things came out about how bad the QC issues have been getting. That's a completely other topic we need to discuss someday. So Masterpiece had me out there, especially when, like, the mainline stuff started giving me exactly what I wanted. Nice representations of the characters that weren't too complicated to transform. They were efficient. They were clean. You know, you actually could, like, just sit down and transform it in a few minutes and just get your enjoyment out of the toy without everything being overly complicated or so expensive I'm scared to even touch it. Let alone transform it. But that is still when we're talking like the $20 deluxe, the $22 deluxe. Deluxe now $25. And even then, we're starting to see things shift again. Let's take a look at the core series Rise of the Beast figures. The Optimus Prime here, I did a review of, and I really do like the Optimus Prime. But even in that review, I mentioned, yeah, it's still a $35 Voyager. Now, it's going for different things. It's going for a different size scale, and that's kind of what the movie toys have been doing the last few years, is going for scale and making up for it with complexity. But we also acknowledge this toy doesn't have the paint that it needs to have, and it's still very small for the price point. So I just recently saw a comparison. Someone got the upcoming Bumblebee one in hand and put it next to this one. Keep in mind, they're both $35 toys at retail. And when you put these two beside each other, the Core Series 1 is small, like tiny by comparison to what we're going to get in the Buzzworthy line. And I just sit back and wonder, why is it so cheap? How is it so small for the price? Like, I don't understand where it went. Now understand, the price shifts for Transformers always shift like that. There always seems to be a break point that you can tell where things shifted. I can remember the first major ones I can remember. The Prime was a key example, because everything all the way in Generations and then into Transformers Prime First Edition, which were supposed to be Generations. It's supposed to be just the one wave of Prime toys they were doing at the time. That series went from like, wait. These are too complex and too big, so we're just going to run those as store exclusives at Toys R Us, and the main line is going to be smaller, cheaper. We're going to devote more budget into gimmickry. So they felt drastically inferior. Like if you put the mainline Optimus Prime up against First Edition Optimus Prime, or the mainline Bulkhead against First Edition Bulkhead, it's not even remotely close in quality. It's not even remotely close. So you can see the notable dip in the size and the engineering quality of those toys. You could do it again in the movie toys. Like Revenge of the Fallen was really big on super complex toys for their size because they were trying to be as movie accurate as possible. And then you get into Dark of the Moon, where I feel like the toys functioned a lot better. I felt a lot better about transforming Dark of the Moon toys. But at the same time, those figures relegated all of their gimmickry into the big weapons they came with. And because of that, when they removed the weapons, you notice that the toy is noticeably smaller than they used to be. But now they've given you a series to kind of get a feel for that smaller size. And then when they strip the weapon away and just give you a normal rifle accessory instead, it still felt like the normal toys that you just had last year. It was a transitional thing. But if you're paying attention, you obviously noticed, wait, that's not the size it was. I'm paying more for less. And I feel like that's going to happen again. I feel like the next time it's not going to be a size down. I mentioned this in my last Q&A video, but it's worth mentioning again. I really feel like a big part of why Transformers are so expensive these days is the complexity of the toys, because we as collectors started insisting on these ridiculous levels of articulation. Bicep swivels, thigh swivels, universal hips and shoulders, wrist rotations, ankle swivels, 180-degree elbows, 180-degree knees. We, like, no ball joints. We know ball joints are cheaper. We know ball joints are more cost effective, but robust universal joints only. We as collectors have these demands when it comes to engineering, and not only do I think it's making Transformers more complicated than they necessarily need to be, and limiting what they would be able to do with transformations, because they have to account for where all these joints go, but I also feel like it's making the toys way more expensive than they need to be, because we're so insistent on those extra points of articulation. It means that we get far higher part counts, which means more expensive figures. I'll tell you right now, the next step, I don't think is going to be sizing the toys down. I think it's going to be stripping out points of articulation. I expect Transformers to go back to feet that are molded in like a slight angle, so they stand up. Well, they look more natural when they're stood up. I don't think it's going to be in hollowed out parts. I think it's going to be in simplified elbows. I don't think it's going to be in like paint apps stripped or size reduced. I think it's going to be going back to ball joints for everything. And that's kind of the direction I feel like Transformers is going to head in next as far as cost cutting. And even then, that does not say they won't raise the price as well. Like I said, it feels like we're due. But at what point? Like, would you be willing to pay $30 for a deluxe? I don't think I would. I genuinely think I'm one price hike away from just saying, you know what? I'm done. I'm done buying things brand new. I'm just going to wait for them to go on sale. And they still do. They still do. Here's that dumb Optimus Prime mask. The movie isn't even out yet, and it's already $10 off. Man, I wish I waited, because I like the Prime mask better than the Bumblebee mask, and I don't want to buy more than one of these stupid things. So, I mean, that's what it comes down to. That's ultimately what it comes down to. It's just like, I'm gonna end up being one of those collectors that just kind of sits and waits for things to go on sale and hope that it doesn't become one of those crazy expensive ones that is super hard to find later on. Things like Tarn, who's on normal release, is already commanding bigger prices on the aftermarket. Sucks. So do you wait for sales and try to be thrifty and then take the risk that something is going to be so expensive to complete your collection with that it's going to mitigate all your savings? I don't know. And there's also the part of me that wonders, just like, how much farther does it go? Like, oh, wrong one. How much farther does it go? Like, do we really get to this point where, like, how many Transformers are really left? If you're a G1 collector, you're down to, like, some Target Master characters that haven't been done yet, some Power Master characters, little gimmicky things from the late 80s. Like, there's nothing left. They've gone to just about every direction they can go. So I wonder what's going to happen first. Like, do you run out of characters that need new toys that would interest collectors, or do you like get the toys to be so, uninspired, like so like cost cut that they're just not worth the price point that they're going to start asking? Now, I know a lot of you already feel this way, and a lot of you have already cut Transformers out. You're living vicariously through reviewers like me who'll tell you what these toys are like. And yeah, as long as I am able to financially do that, I will do that for you. However, I do understand that a lot of you watching Watch because you either enjoy my content, you still enjoy hearing about Transformers, even if you can't participate in it financially. That's completely okay. That is your call to make. And I just think that we're one price hike away from a lot more people joining you. And I don't know how much longer Transformers can go on with it without eating itself alive. So there's my rant for the day. Too long, didn't listen. Transformer prices suck, and I think they're one price point away from truly damaging the brand permanently. Unless they figure out some other way of cutting the costs or making them more, they have to figure out some way of cutting the cost that doesn't involve shrinking the toys again or raising the prices, one or the other. That's the long and short of it. Let me know in the comments below. How close are you? Is it already too much for you? Or you're like me and you're just riding the line of I'm barely okay with this and I don't know how much longer I'm on this ride for. Thank you for listening. This has been a rant brought to you by I ran out of time to get the video done that I wanted to. Tomorrow, we are going to be doing Let's Fix Transformers Beast Machines. I'll redo the show and the story my way and tell you how it should have been done within the limits that they had at Mainframe. Monday is going to be your news roundup, and then Tuesday, I believe, I'll be bringing you a box opening for YOLO Park's Rise of the Beast model kits. Don't know what I'm doing Wednesday, but Thursday and Friday, we are doing reviews for Transformers Rise of the Beast, non-spoiler version. On Thursday, and then on release day Friday, you're getting a spoiler-filled version. So we'll do both videos, and then Saturday we'll do YOLO Park again. We'll do the box opening one day, and then Saturday I'll do the full review, and I might show you what one of them looks like fully painted, so we can see how good those kits can be. So that's my plan. I have a schedule for the week. Wednesday's just going to be the surprise. Hopefully everything else stays on track. So there you go. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time.
We're gonna have to get your names for the books. You, Pale One.
William Current.
Roll me a deception check.
I thought their name was Pain.
Roll a disadvantage.
Okay.
That was like the opposite of the help action there. You, Goblin.
First name D's.
Watch your tongue.